I'm joined by Andy Sen, CTO of AppDirect and one of the earliest builders of really online marketplaces, from IBM's Internet Commerce Group to Walmart, Salesforce's App Exchange, and to AppDirect, where you've been for, Andy, the past 13-ish years, 14 years? Do I have that
No,
right?
time flies. It's actually closer to 16.
Holy, 16 years. That's
That's
amazing.
right.
Well, I'm excited to get into it. I know it's been quite a ride for you, and we've known each other for some time now. And I admire the company that you've helped build at AppDirect, the organization, the product, the engineering organization, everything. So I'm really excited to have you on. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's always great to talk to you. Yeah, I remember the early days, Ilan. You were responsible for finding and recruiting and convincing to come on board, like our earliest cohort of engineers, and some of them who are still there at AppDirect, and we've continued to grow since then.
That's very kind of you. We just feel honored to have played a small part in it. And it's amazing to see where AppDirect is today. Always rooting for you guys. So that's for sure.
Thank you.
So, Andy, from your path from IBM, Walmart, the App Exchange at Salesforce to AppDirect, is there a through line across all those experiences that maybe shaped how you build teams and product today? What comes to your mind?
Well, I mean, in one way, I've been doing the same thing throughout my career, and that's some form of e-commerce, buying and selling things over the internet. When I first got out of college in the late 90s and joined IBM, this was the first days of internet commerce. People were just getting used to the idea that you can put your credit card numbers online and have things show up. So I was fortunate to kind of get in on the ground floor on that. Did a lot of early e-commerce websites, services, things like that. And then I've basically been doing the same thing, except I've been doing things while the technology underneath has just evolved incredibly. From those early days of just a bunch of HTML and forms and you're buying things, to getting rich internet applications, the whole mobile revolution where more and more commerce started happening online, the B2B subscription revolution, which kind of started maybe with the App Exchange and which was the first app store for companies. And then we kind of took that to the next step with AppDirect. And now even at AppDirect, like the technology keeps shifting, and now we've got AI. The whole trend now is AI-assisted commerce, which very excited to kind of delve in as well. So in the end, people want to do commerce on the internet. And just the way we do that, the ease of it, what we're assisted by just has kept changing for the last 20 plus years.
Interesting. Quite the evolution within the industry, but also within the e-commerce space, as you've seen it
Exactly.
firsthand over the past really 2-3 decades.
Mhm.
I remember in the early days of AppDirect, it was a small team. There were a couple sites. I know that something you've said in the past, something along the lines that teams should be regionally co-located to maintain speed and intensity. How did you create structure and ownership? Today or over the past few years, as AppDirect has come a lot bigger, it's an 1,000-person-ish org, correct me if I'm wrong,
No,
without
it
slowing
is over.
innovation. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this, and probably the most profound change as a leader came when we moved from having people all co-located in the same room. This was, back in the 2010s, so everybody came to work 5 days a week until we had our first remote office, which you helped set up in Montreal. And immediately, a lot of things that you take for granted, just being able to be face to face with people, have spontaneous conversations, walk up to a nearby whiteboard and start sketching out, no longer become possible. And this was before COVID era made all these tools available for remote working. And it was a challenge to have remote teams. And one of the things we've found out really quickly is if you just have a bunch of people on a remote site and you're kind of they're on a Scrum team and you're just giving them tasks to do, they're not going to be invested in the company. They're not going to be invested in the mission. They're just going to be feel like, well, or here's here's this, here I am sitting over here. Someone gives me these tasks. I don't know what the context is. I'm just doing them, and that's no way to motivate a team. No way to have A+ players stay in your team. No way to build a great product. So one of the values of AppDirect was and is ownership. We want everybody on the team to really take ownership of their work product, whatever that is. And in the case of remote work, what we said was, okay, a task is just too small a segment to kind of give to an office thousands of miles away. So we started having themes around each offices. We started co-locating teams within the office so that it's not just one person accepting tasks, an entire team. And an entire team has ownership over an epic, over a product aspect, and they are the ones who kind of decide how to implement that. They have a lot of autonomy. Once they have that, they feel that ownership. They feel that yes, we are part of AfterX. There is no, different types of employees, people who work in headquarters versus those who don't. We're one team, and we took that and then, as you know, we opened up a lot of remote offices all over the world. Time zones were a challenge, but we kept the same the same. Of course, when COVID hit, that just blew up the entire model because then no one's in the same office. So all the effort that we had made around geographical coordination kind of went away. Time zones are real. Those never go away, but then it's like, well, if you're on the same time zone, what difference does it make? And we've evolved past that now to where we're mostly a hybrid organization. People come into work one day a week. That we might shift that a little bit up, but that seems to be the right balance at the moment where we've gone back to this idea of like, each office, each remote location has a theme. People are on the same team. They work on the same project together. And at least once a week, I mean, they can come in more often if they want. They can come into the office. They can have those conversations. They can do those whiteboarding sessions. And I think that's a good balance where we've reached in 2025.
That's amazing. It's not in any way all talk in what you're saying. I kind of, in a small way, lived it. I remember in Montreal, as you guys were starting to build that office and that team, and again in India, or when I would visit in San Francisco, and there was a sense of ownership at each of these locations amongst the teams. Intensity, another
Right, abstract
value,
value.
another direct value, but there was a sense of ownership, of pride in each of these geographies on the different things that they're working on. But it wasn't that they were off on their own island in any way. They were a part of a
No, not at
bigger
all.
team, a part of everybody's one team, and it was something that you could feel walking in an app direct space. And I like to think that it has played some part in your guys' success and what you built and how you've structured that culture to be able to do that. So it's pretty amazing, Andy. Um, fast forward to today, where you talked a little bit about COVID, remote teams, but still having an in-person element to it being important. I mean, now you have AI as it relates to innovation and AI and weaving that into the culture of your organization, right? And maybe if you could speak about how you think about AI, App Direct, how does it fit or weave into your culture? Is it just, you're sitting in a room with, you know, the CEO and you guys are coming up with a top down approach to how you guys are? I imagine not, but yeah, feel free to extrapolate. How does AI weave into everything?
I'm really glad that you started this by talking about culture, because to me, that's the most important aspect. There's a saying, and I'm not going to try to misattribute it to somebody, but it's basically saying your company's strategy is downstream from your culture. That's what comes first. If you have a culture of motivated people, who are innovating, who are, working with intensity and ownership, That gives you a lot of momentum, which you can then steer the company in any direction you want. AI is, to me, is also a cultural issue in the company. So if you think back a long time ago, a year ago, which, in AI terms, a year could be a century, there was a lot of apprehension when the first tools started coming out. People were, well, this is going to affect my job. What's going to happen? I'd like to think that at AppDirect, we brought it back to like the culture and the values. We have a culture. One, if the intensity is one of them, ownership is one of the other values. True north, the ability to really look and see what's good for the long term growth of the company. These are all our values. These have been our values for 15 plus years, long before there were AI. And then the question comes, well, okay, AI is just a tool. How do we use this tool to really amplify our values, to really push to do more of what we've been trying to do all along? And we'll talk about a couple of different examples of it. But everything about introducing AI into AppDirect has been culture first. We didn't change our mission of our company, it's remained the same. AI is a tool which enables us to get to that vision faster. We kept the culture of recognizing and ownership alive. So as people did AI projects or innovated using AI, we celebrated those wins everywhere from like the CEO at Global Town Hall down to like managers appreciating, measuring, and recognizing the work that's being done. So definitely culture first in terms of AI usage and adoption. And the second thing you asked was, well, how did you guys decide? Is it from the top down or how does that work? Well, I mean, there is an aspect of top down, as in the CEO has to agree that, if we want to get into AI, that we want to use AI. I mean, at the end of the day, if the CEO and the board are like, we're not going to use AI, then there's not going to be any AI at the company. But having said that, I think we did a good job, or we're doing a good job of balancing top down and bottoms up. There are clearly top-down initiatives in the company based on trends, and we talked about a little earlier. We do want to introduce AI into commerce. We do want to have people have artificial intelligence assisted commerce flows, and that's more of a top-down. But what's interesting is the bottoms up. So what we said was we let people in each department, they're the experts, they know what needs to be done. We made it easier for them to create AI solutions. We created a platform, and then we've actually opened that up to the entire world. It's called devs.ai, publicly available. We started using it internally, but then we said, well, let's just push it out. And this devs AI is essentially a digital playground, which allows anyone, non-technical, to create your own AI agents, give it your own data in terms of whatever you're working with, and then use it to create workflows or just use it as a chatbot. And then that thing that you create can be embedded anywhere. Now, if I put on my kind of my CIO hat and you're like, wait a minute, you're opening this up to employees, they can create AIs, they're putting in company data. This sounds dangerous. So the interesting thing, what we did is we put in guardrails. It's a digital playground with guardrails. You could use any LLM in Devs AI, ChatGPT, Anthropic, Gemini, whatever. But they all have that enterprise account in them, which means that the data that you upload is not going to be present all over the internet. There are access standards built in, so that let's say if you're the HR department and you put in people data, well, you can control who gets to see that data, which agent can people interact with. So it has all those guardrails in there to make it easier for employees to build something, use something, create useful tools without the C-suite wondering like, oh my God, is all my confidential data going out to the internet tomorrow? So that's what I mean by bottoms up AI adoption. And that's been a great success as well.
Andy, it's interesting how you responded kind of in a balanced manner in saying that, sure, of course, there's a top down approach that feeds a bottom up approach, essentially. They work together, they work off each other. I feel like I remember being in the room with, I don't know, maybe an engineer or someone on the people team, yourself, Nick, and there'd be whiteboarding going on. You couldn't see any of the whiteboard anymore because it was all marker and everything else. These were inspiring collaborative sessions that made any rank and file individual at AppDirect want to contribute, innovate, take ownership, get things done. And it's kind of cool to see it. This is just one example of it coming to fruition in devs.ai. And you're literally giving the power to your people to go and build and innovate and create better processes and come up with new insights. It's inspiring and very, very cool. So commend you guys for it.
So thank you. And one of the things I'll just throw out there, I'm hoping someone can build it, maybe with Devs AI, is that I love whiteboarding. I've always loved it throughout my career, and a really good solution for being able to whiteboard remotely. And I know all of these Google Meet, they all have some version of it, but it's just not great. So I'm definitely waiting for that. But more to your point, like, yeah, that spirit of collaboration is very important at AppDirect, and whatever tools that we can do to enable that, whatever we can do culturally to inspire people to build that is more. So specifically for AI and Devs AI, what we did culturally was, okay, we've given people a tool, they're out there, they're building, they're doing things. But for AppDirect and for anyone who uses Devs AI, we can centrally monitor and see what people are building. We can see who are the people who are creating agents, what are they doing with it. And one way to use this visibility is to celebrate those people. So then you can see that, hey, wow, somebody in finance has created this great tool. Somebody on the people team has uploaded all our people data so that the employees can chat and find out, like, vacation days and schedules and health insurance and all of that. And it's really important to take that and to celebrate it, because again, it's all about the culture. You want a culture where people are excited, they get that positive feedback, and that's something we have done in the context of Devs AI, but across after.
Behind me, I have there's a book here called The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. And he talks about, it's all about culture and, and how do you get the most out of high performing individuals and whatever else. And there's a conversation around people at organizations need to feel safe. It almost sounds a little bit silly, but it's very true. In order to be creative, in order to collaborate, in order to make mistakes, to push the envelope forward. Do you agree with that? Is that something? How do you create safety? How do you? I mean, I guess you were kind of just saying it there. Like, you celebrate it. Hey, go use it. How do you? Yeah. How does that?
Well, I mean, if I put on my software engineer hat, this is intrinsic to the way we build software, using tools like GitHub or just the idea of source control. You have undos in any word processor in Word, but in software engineering, you take that to like a whole different level. You can go back and in time and see what changed, what happened, who did what, and you can reverse all of that. So that just in software engineering is really helps get that culture where you can do things, you can make mistakes, and then you can revert them. Now, not everything can be done in such a manner, but I do agree that it's really important that you have the opportunity to make mistakes. So the way I think about that and the way we do it is to have really rapid, small changes. So give people the ability, give people the ability to do something small, get it out there, and collect feedback. And once you have that feedback, you can see, is it doing well, or have you made a mistake? If you made a mistake, no big deal. You can iterate again. So I think getting to a point where people are comfortable in trying new things, not being afraid to fail, is very connected with this idea of rapid iterative development.
Great. Yeah. I mean, you can't think you're just going to go and build X, and the plan from the beginning is what is going to be at the end. You need to be iterative, collaborative, make mistakes, and that comes from the culture and collaboration and everything else.
And I'm not discounting planning either. But it's interesting. There's another quote which is planning is really important. The actual plan isn't important at all because you make your plan, you start the process, you realize that things are gone differently. You can't possibly foresee all circumstances, and then you just repeat. You plan again based on your new mission and your new data, and you just continue that process.
Great. So, Andy, you've seen the evolution of a team of three at AppDirect to a team of 1,000. You've seen engineering teams grow, scale across the world, and you've seen engineering teams and the entire organization adapt through what is a seismic shift as it relates to AI. And I imagine that it's changing. It is changing the world of talent. We both see it. I guess my question for you is, how is it changing the world of talent? What are you seeing? What is different today than maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
Hmm. Okay, I'll answer that by saying something I'm seeing different from what's 5 months ago. So I think AI, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's just a temporary glitch. But if you look back over the decades, software engineering is becoming more and more complex, and as a result, roles were getting more and more specialized. Front end, you got back end, you got database, you got SREs. I mean, there's every little niche has somebody who's specialized in it. And that's just engineering, and everything surrounded by that. You've got business analysts, product managers, QA folks, designers. It's like in a sense, as you it became easier technically to launch a product, you almost needed more roles around it. And that's a trend that's been going on for a long time. And I'm getting that hint that AI is reversing that. It's bringing about this resurgence of generalists. We are already at the point where somebody who's not a specialist, but using an AI tool can design something, build it, and have a finished product out there which they can iterate on. So the same person can do the job of multiple developers, a product manager, a UX person, and build a product. Now, today, is that product going to be commercially ready that you can just put it out there and have millions of people use it? No. There's issues around the data, which AIs aren't very good at. As of today, AIs are pretty terrible at anything to do with security. Their design skills, you have to really prompt them. So you almost have to be a good designer to tell it what kind of design to come up with. So there's a lot of things that they can't do. But I think you're getting to this point where instead of having, let's say, a team of 5 specialists, you can now have 5 teams with 5 generalists and a couple of specialists jumping in to really assist the product to kind of polish that product. So almost like a generalist and a polisher. I mean, these are just terms I'm throwing out there, but I see this trend happening, or at least starting.
Very interesting. So it's almost as if, a generalist engineer that can work with AI can do a ton of the legwork that specialists would have done previously by using AI and whatever else, but still, like, to make a world class solution, you need
Right.
specialists around that could jump in. And it's almost like people are becoming more. I think this is something you've said one time, but they're becoming more talent fluid. They're more.
Exactly.
They can kind of shapeshift and adapt, which is something that we're seeing as well. Especially a lot of our partners these days are early stage technology companies, and they're hiring generalists that do the work of whatever 3, 5, 10 engineers might have done in the past, but they're taking on different projects, front end, back end, this, that. We'll see how it plays out in time. That's for sure. So
And
maybe
I can see this, if this trend goes, I can see entirely new types of companies forming, which kind of fill in the holes. So you can have almost like a service, for example, where they go in, they see the code that's been created by generalists, and they fix it for security issues. So you have almost like a security as a software service
service.
wing that comes up. It's hard to know how far this trend is going to go, but I definitely see the beginnings of this happening.
Very interesting. So Andy, I remember when we were working intimately together. I remember there was always a very high bar at AppDirect in terms of bringing in talent. Sometimes it'd make our job difficult. No, I'm kidding. It was always for the best. It's the way it should
Mhm.
be. There was a very high bar for bringing in great people, skilled individuals that fit the culture. And there were different, there'd be different attributes you guys would look for as different companies do. Are there attributes or things today when you're hiring that you look for that might be different than things were 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago in the past? Like, are there skill sets you guys are specifically get more excited about today than you would have in the past?
That's a great question. So, in terms of the bar, that bar keeps rising. I am literally amazed at the talent of some of the
Sorry,
people at
Andy,
After
just
Effects now.
just to interject, I'm gonna put a name on you. You were always the keeper of the high bar. People would try to poke holes. It was always Andy that was keeping that high bar. So kudos to you. But
Thank,
anyways, I'll let
thank
you
you.
continue.
Just amazed at like the talent of the people at After Effects today. Now, I don't think we have changed any of our hiring criteria, but I will say that from my point of view, I think we give this curiosity or the willing to innovate a little bit of a bigger weight. So for now, if an engineer comes in and interviews and we ask them about like how they use AI and they just say, well, I don't like AI, I've never used it, that's a little bit of a, if not a red flag, at least a bright yellow flag. Like how can you not be curious to at least try it? I'm totally fine if someone is like, I spent, 10 hours setting it up and did a little project, and I don't think AI is the right tool for X, Y, Z, and gives a good answer. But yeah, definitely putting a little bit more weight on curiosity and innovation because we don't know what's happening next. But what we do know is that the people who kind of can adapt will be the people who will succeed in that environment.
Yeah, I think adaptation
Mhm.
as a skill is key, and people who are comfortable being uncomfortable, okay with change, okay with working with new things that they've never worked with before, um, which all kind of rolls up into curiosity or the courage to innovate, is something that we're seeing. People emphasize, founders emphasize as well. So Andy, I'd like to shift focus here a little bit on pricing, enterprise software. I know that's a big part for AppDirect, and an agentic future, and talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that. You've said clarity in usage is becoming almost like a pricing superpower in a way. First of all, what does that mean? And what pricing shifts are you seeing, you know, today in an AI world?
So to understand what that means is you got to look at it from two different perspectives. One is the software vendor, and traditionally the way they've made money, they built a piece of software, and that piece of software has to appeal to a very broad audience. The broader the better. If it appeals to everyone, that's great. And then their customers would buy it, get value out of it, and pay whatever the license fee was. Now, to get that broad base, you kind of just shotgun the features in there so that even if no single customer was using half the features in there, it doesn't matter. That's kind of the way software has been sold. Now, what AI is changing, and frankly, it's already changed at places like AppDirect, is it makes it really easy to build point solutions. I'm not talking about for your main product, I'm talking mostly for software that you use internally. So it's made it really easier to create small pieces of software which just hit your needs. It's not going to be sold commercially. It doesn't have to be at the standard of commercial software. It doesn't have to have a ton of features. But now you've got this homegrown alternative, which is a lot more powerful and a lot more real than it was even 2 years ago. So, how does a software vendor react to that? And I think the only way that they can react is Stop selling in terms of I have a million features. That doesn't make any sense. But make it really easy to measure the value customers are getting out of it. Now, if you're selling commerce software, like which of course ActRight does, one clear value is, well, as a customer, you're taking the commerce software. How much are you selling through, right? Uh, that's a clear benefit. And if you can price where you're aligned to that benefit, you'll do well. And that example applies to everything. If you're doing, let's say, a recruiting software, for example, how much time is it actually saving? Well, what's the NPS of like the end-end customer? There are many different ways that you can collect that data to quantify what I mean by useful, and then you need to price based on that. Because if you don't, the competition from homegrown point solutions is just going to be too much. It's a real threat at this point.
I think the more measurable the usage is,
Yes,
I think the more successful the pricing will be, the more you'll get uptick from customers.
right. And you have to align that price with the usefulness. So you got to first measure it, and then you've got to align your pricing plan to whatever it is that you're measuring.
So Andy, like the early internet, which you saw firsthand, you were a part of
Mhm.
it and building it. AI isn't going to clearly show up on the bottom line. Of course, it already is to some degree, but it's not going to all happen at once. You know, what should leaders be measuring, let's say in 20, end of 2025, 2026, so they don't fall behind? Is there any advice you'd give on that too?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I really like your analogy, by the way. I mean, it's the same thing as when the internet first started. Everybody started using the internet. Every company has the internet. Everyone has email. But it would be really hard, like in let's say 1999, to come and say, okay, you guys have adopted email. How's that showing up in your profit and loss statement? It's hard to measure. What I would say about AI is you got to measure, right? And you need to measure how much of it is being used, and that's like level one. In general, you have to have the kind of trust in your team that if the team is really using something, whether it's AI or not, they're probably doing it for a reason. So that's number one. And then you need to start looking at the metrics of that particular team, whether it's marketing or finance or people or engineering, and see how much of it is being improved by AI. What I'm seeing today is it's not a curve that just goes up continuously. Every time we introduce some kind of an AI tool, whether it's in an existing tool or you buy a brand new AI tool, what I'm seeing at least is like step jumps. Like it goes from, I don't know, it goes up, let's say 20%, 30%, 40%, whatever metric you're trying to measure. And then it kind of stays there until you get the next version of the next AI tool or the next feature that's kind of unlocked. Will that be the same thing in the end of 2026? I don't know. But at this point, I see AI tools as essentially tools giving you a step function, and that should be easy for any company to measure.
Yeah, 100%. It kind of is a good segue into my next question for you, which is, you know, do you do you buy or build with the rate of innovation and the way that it is? If you buy, you can just take advantage of that step function. Do you build for the long term? Train your own models, use other models, public, like,
Yeah,
I don't know. What's your thought?
my thought is at the rate that the innovation is happening, both commercially as well as just the open source AI is incredible. I would be very suspicious or very hesitant to start doing things like training your own model. The models are improving so fast. Similarly, building any kind of infrastructure around AI workflows or things like that. Every few months, they're coming up with a solution which goes over that. What I would do generically in any business is what's unique to your business. It's your data and your own workflows. I would take those and incorporate them into some kind of an AI solution built on a company that's investing hundreds of billions of dollars into their product. Anytime you start building AI infrastructure, which is not tied to your data and your workflows, I'd give it a second look. It's probably not worth
Hmm. It's almost like they're bigger, better organizations that's their sole focus on doing. You know what I mean? It's almost like focus on your core competency.
it.
You know,
Exactly.
for us, it's our relationships with our
Hmm.
candidates, our database of candidates that we can quickly get to. So it's almost as if like, hey, we should harness that database, the data on it, clean data, and the workflows around it, and not go and create our own infra, LLM of sorts.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And whether it's you're using something like a tool like Dev's AI or just going straight to one LLM vendor, at this point, they all have tools for taking your data, securely uploading them, being able to analyze it, having the AI being able to speak intelligently about it. And then you can put your workflows around that as well, and you can have a unique solution for your business. And that's what I'd encourage people to try out first.
that's great. So Andy, we're getting close to wrapping up here. I just have a couple more questions for you. I know you're an honest, straight shooter. Is there a leadership lesson of the past year for yourself that comes to mind? A hard leadership lesson that you want to share, or you'd want other leaders, CTOs, founders to know?
Sure. Okay. I talked about how culture is upstream from strategy. So that's one thing I said. Another thing I said was you really have to make iterations and be able to course correct when things are not going the way you think. You can't forget that, and especially as someone technical, you can't forget that when you're dealing with something you find really cool like AI. Oh, the same lessons apply there. You can't just say like, oh wow, we've got AI, we're going to put some data together, we're going to release it out there. It's going to be this chatbot, and customers are going to directly to the chatbot and start working with it. Maybe, but in a lot of cases, they don't. They have their familiar interfaces, the way that they're doing things, and just because it's new and cool doesn't mean they're going to adopt it. You still have to go back to like the basics of create something useful, measure that it's working, if not, course correct. So I just stick with that as my back to the basics plan.
It's easy with AI to get caught in the magic of it.
Hmm?
And AI, in many ways, feels magical
Right.
in much of what it can do, but you still need to, bring it back to first principles, to the basics, iterate as quickly as you can, but step by step. You know what I
Step
mean?
by step, right.
So
And just because you think something is cool doesn't mean that the world is, or that the world is looking to you for something cool. The world is looking to you to solve their problems and be useful. And you can't forget that with all the hype around AI.
that's great, Andy. This was awesome. I very much appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. This was a lot of fun. It was great catching up with you. I think this was really insightful. So thank you.
And likewise, Ilan, it was a great conversation and good catching up with you too.